Online for Authors, where I, Terry M. Brown, author of character-driven fiction and host of the podcast, introduce readers to characters they'd love to invite to lunch by interviewing authors, discussing their books, learning about the writing process, and even, on occasion, chatting live with a panel of authors to discuss topics relevant to both readers and writers. My guest today on the Online for Authors podcast is Barbara Dullaghan, author of the book Secrets in the Hollow. Barbara grew up in Sleepy Hollow and Tarrytown and is enthralled with the magic and energy of these towns. In my book review, I stated Secrets in the Hollow is a debut mystery set in the small town of Sleepy Hollow. Not only does the storyline follow Carrie Peters, a woman of 40 who has yet to figure out her life because she has been hiding her past, but it also provides readers with a great sense of place. Throughout the story, we learn of the history of Sleepy Hollow, its cemetery, and its ghosts. At the same time, we learn of Carrie's secrets, her own personal ghosts that haunt every waking minute. What happens when secrets finally come out? Do friendships remain? Can Carrie find her happily ever after? I enjoyed Barbara's first novel, and those who enjoy mystery will certainly find this to be a good read. Today on Online for Authors, I'm chatting with Barbara Dullaghan, author of Secrets in the Hollow. Welcome, Barbara.
Thank you, Terry. Thanks for having me in.
I am so excited to have you. Before we really get into your book, though, why don't you give listeners just a quick elevator pitch? What is your book about?
Secrets in the Hollow is a Sleepy Hollow mystery, and it takes place in Sleepy Hollow, New York, where I grew up. Basically, Carrie Peters is a 40-year-old who has riddled with guilt, and she just struggling to understand how her world could have gone so wrong. She has to deal with some bad decisions that she made in the past in high school, and she has no one to share her angst with except her ex-boyfriend from high school. And she does not want to get into that relationship again. So that's really struggling for her. And the main idea is that she needs to either come forward with her guilt and deal with the consequences, or live that way for the rest of her life. And she's not sure she wants to do that.
Right. And through it all, there's mystery.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some like ghosts, right?
There's urban legends.
Right.
Sleepy Hollow is the home of The Legend of Sleepy Hollow by Washington Irving. So all of those legends are true. They all, if you live in the town, you grow up believing them, and you grow up, just steeped in them. And the wonderful thing about Sleepy Hollow and Tarrytown is that they are river towns along the Hudson River in New York State. And the river is the widest at its point. The Hudson River is the widest at its point at Tarrytown and Sleepy Hollow. So it's just a stunning backdrop to this story. And, having grown up there, I knew a lot of the ins and outs of the towns and the people and all of that. And it's kind of a love letter to my hometown.
I did notice as I was reading it that you gave a beautiful sense of place. And that's something that I said in my review of the book, is that sense of place, like I was there. And I feel like, and I've never been to Sleepy Hollow or Tarrytown. And so for me, it really brought me to that place, and I really enjoyed that. So what prompted you to pick mystery as your genre?
I've always loved mysteries. I've just always, since my mother and I used to go to Warner Library as a child, I've always loved unknowing and the secrets of trying to figure things out. And I just love mysteries. I think they're really good for the mind, and they're exciting. And so I love them. Yeah, I really do.
So I'm assuming you read the genre a lot.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Okay. Is there anything else that you like to read as well, or do you pretty much stick just with mystery?
No, I read. I read a lot of women's fiction. I
Hmm.
also read a lot of young adult,
Yeah.
um, and uh, I do. I did in the past read a lot of fantasy, like Lord of the Rings and
Hmm.
those kinds of things, because those were developing worlds, and I was very taken by the fact that an author could create worlds like that. That's just amazing to me. So I do like those too. I
Yeah.
really like a lot of things. I don't read a lot of nonfiction anymore. I did a lot of that when I was in education. I had to read,
Right.
my
Right.
education books.
Exactly.
So I don't read a lot of nonfiction, but yeah.
So, it's interesting when you were talking about the developing worlds. I find it amazing that authors can do it, and it's not a skill that I'm good at. I have a really difficult time with the world building. I do much better with, here, you've given me a world. Now let me do something with a person in it, right? And I have trouble. How about you? Do you feel confident? Like, do you think you could sit down and write a world?
I'm not sure. Remember, I grew up in this world, so that's why
Right.
and my second book is actually based there also. So
Okay.
I'm not sure. That would be an interesting task for me, to see if I really could develop an entire world and story around that world.
Right.
Yeah, that
Right.
would be interesting.
Yeah, I've wondered. This is, I've finished my third now, and I feel like I am getting a little better in areas that I didn't do as well in the first time and then the
Mhm,
second time. But I don't know. I don't know that a fantasy novel with worlds and rules and things that were
mhm.
unlike what I grew up with, or unlike what I could go research. So,
Yes,
I like delving into the historical fiction
me
because
too.
it allows me to go back in time and see a different world, but it's still my world, just at an earlier point,
Right.
And so maybe some of the rules have changed a little, but not tremendously. And I'm able to kind of like pick and choose and find what works for me.
Hmm.
Fantasy, yeah, I don't know that I have that in me. I'm not
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
I don't think so either. But, even within my world of Sleepy Hollow, there's a lot, even though I grew up there, spent 18 years there, born and raised, there were places in that world that I never experienced. So, like, my next story is about Sunnyside, which was the home of Washington Irving. Well, it's kind of like when you live in New York City, you
Yes.
don't always go to the Eiffel Tower, Empire State Building.
Right.
It's the same kind of thing. There were lots of places in Tarrytown that I really didn't frequent. So for me, that's been the research I've been doing within that world. So,
Right. I love that. And it really flows right into my next question, which was going to be about the research. At first I thought, well, maybe I don't even need to talk to you about research because you lived there and you just know the place. But obviously, as you said, you did. So tell us a little bit about that research. How did you do it? Did you go and visit? Did you look online? Did you read books? Where did it
all
come
the
from?
above. All
Yeah.
the above. I loved going back there. My husband is like, "Oh, we're going to Tarrytown again." I loved going back there. I talked to friends that I grew up with who had older brothers and sisters, because there's part of the story is based on the cemetery, and Sleepy Hollow Cemetery, which is renowned cemetery and holds a lot of famous people, and um, this bronze lady that is one of my main characters
Right.
in there. And when I was growing up, the cemetery was locked and closed because
Oh,
apparently the generation right before mine, or the 10-year older than me, would go in there and do the things that I put in my book, drink at the
right.
statue and do all that stuff. So they closed that off. So for me, I didn't even know about the bronze lady, and I was walking in the cemetery. I knew it was going to have to be part of my story because I absolutely love the cemetery. It's just stunning. And so I was taking a walk, and I stumbled literally. I looked around a corner, and there was the bronze lady. And I said, this is it. Oh my gosh.
This is the piece I've been looking for.
The piece I've been looking for. Exactly. So I had to do a lot of research on her and find out all about that. I had to find out a lot about the river. I mean, I knew the river, but I didn't know a lot of things about it. There are other parts of it, like the lighthouse. I'd never been to the lighthouse because it had closed, and Axe Castle and the people that lived there. There was definitely a wealth hierarchy in Tarrytown, in Sleepy Hollow. So I did a lot of research on that. So, yeah.
Do you find that you do a lot of research that doesn't make it into the book?
Oh, so much. And I know you love it too. I mean, at some point I had, the book I'm writing now, I'm actually in a class, and there's two instructors, and they said, "Barb, stop. You have so much stuff right now, but your book is never going to get written if you don't stop researching." So, they gave me a really good clue, and they said, if you find something that you need research, but you're in the zone where you're writing, just put in research this and then keep going. And so that's what I've been trying, and I think it's working a lot better for me because it's so easy to go down the rabbit hole.
It is.
Oh, it's so interesting.
And the more you find, the more you want to find.
That's
and before long, you're on some side tangent that is never going to make it to the book, despite how interesting it is. So I do something really similar to what you said your professors have you do, which I just kind of did myself. I realized that my writing brain and my research brain are two different brains. And if I'm in the creative process and I stop to look something up, it's as much as if someone had come in and interrupted me.
Yes.
And so I don't even write research. I just highlight it in yellow, just a piece, and I just keep going. And I know then when I go through and see that bright yellow, it's like, I need to research here. This is what I need to do. And I do the same thing. I often will be writing and I'll forget what I named a character, like a secondary character that I haven't brought up in 4 or 5 chapters. And it's like, what did I end up naming him? And so I just describe him, first boyfriend from, blah, blah, and then I just highlight it and go on because I don't want to stop.
That's right.
And go back. I want to keep that flow going. So,
right.
Yeah.
Right.
With this class, what other things are you learning that's different from maybe how you wrote your first one?
Well, my first one really took me forever. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
So what does forever mean to you? What are you
well, about? Forever is, probably 8 years. And then, then when I really sat down to it, it was like a year because I had a lot to put together and stuff. I was convinced I could not write a book from beginning to end. When I think, I'm like thinking all over the place. So I had a very indirect style. I would write vignettes and then put the vignettes together, move the vignettes around, and then I'd fill in. Well, this time I decided I'm going to start from the beginning and see. I'm still writing a couple of vignettes if I think about it, but I'm writing from the beginning to the end, and I'm doing it, and I'm shocked at myself because I didn't think I could. I mean, really, I'm not a linear person at all. So for me, it's really been an awakening. My class is also, they also told me, I'm in a writing group that and the writing group gives me feedback on chapters, but then what they suggested is do not do any edits until you're all done with your first, which is really killing me because, I'm like, no, but that's wrong. And I need to go back. So, but I get it. It's the progression forward that they're talking about, that you're talking about. I don't do that well enough. So for me, I'm trying it this way. And if it works, then I'll do that again. If not, then I'll adjust it again.
Right. And that's the wonderful thing about being an author is there isn't a right way to write a book. There are
I
a
needed
lot of
someone
ways.
to tell me that before.
Yeah. But there are a lot of different ways to write a book, and you have to really find what works best for you. So are you a plotter or are you a pantser?
I'm
Or are you in between?
I'm in between because I certainly don't have an outline. I've never had an outline, but like this next book comes in 5 days right now. So I've got day 1, day 2, day 3, day
Right.
4, day 5, and I'll put notes under each one of those days, but that's really basically it. I've got, my notes are written, haphazardly. And then I go back through my notebook and look up, and, oh yeah, that's
Right.
what I wanted to do there. And
Right.
then I put it in. So I'm neither and both. So
Okay.
I would say more a pantser than I am a plotter.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but I'm always surprised. Like in the first book, it was great because there's one point where it's very surprising. I'll just say that. And when I typed it, I went, oh my gosh, that
So
just happened,
So this is wonderful that you say that, because I've had that happen and it makes me feel a little ridiculous.
Yeah.
Because it's like I'm writing it, but then I'm also reading it as it's coming across, and
Mhm.
the reading brain will go, oh, and I think, you stupid fool, you just wrote that your own self. But yeah, it is kind of a shocking, I don't know, it's like that creative brain and the reality brain, they don't talk a lot.
Yeah.
And
I
when
agree.
you're writing, especially if you're writing on the computer like that, and you see those words coming up, I'm like writing and reading at the same time. And that reading brain I've cried before, I've done the
Mhm.
thing before, and it makes you feel a little crazy. Like,
Yeah. And I never understood how authors said that. Well, I didn't know what was going to happen. I was like, come on.
yeah,
How can you not know what's going to happen in your own book? I get it. It's
right.
just so bizarre. It's so
I
bizarre
think
how that happens.
our creativity is hidden away in our subconscious, where we don't access it freely. And so
Mhm.
it's almost like, I think our subconscious does know where the book is going.
Yeah.
It just isn't communicating with the conscious. And so
That's true. I
as
wish it would come along faster. Yeah.
as the author, we're walking around going, I have no idea. I have
Yeah.
no idea. But if we could just tap in and really listen ahead, I seem
Mhm.
to be right wherever I'm writing and not any further. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. I know I need to, as an educator, I studied creativity, and I always have found myself that I've needed to incubate and think about an idea for a long time before it goes in. So if I get an idea, I don't necessarily type it right away. I will incubate on it for a
yeah,
little while. Like I take a walk, or I think, and then I'm able to come and write down notes or whatever.
right.
So I think
That's
it is
funny.
that
You use the word,
incubation.
you use incubate, and I say percolate, like coffee. I said I just sit there and let,
Yeah,
as my brain is going. And then sometimes it doesn't work out. Like I take it
right,
to its conclusion and I think, yeah, that isn't going to work. And instead of having written it all down, it's like, nah, we're not going that way. And then something else will pop up instead, and we'll, take
right,
that. So
right.
yeah. Do you have a writing schedule? Do you sit down every single day from a certain time to a certain time?
Well, I didn't with Secrets in the Hollow, and that's one reason why it took me so long. With this class, I'm writing 4 days a week, um, 10 to 1. They have an open time where the
Mm-hmm.
teachers are there. And then we also have a one-on-one once a month, and twice a month, and with one of the instructors, which is almost like a developmental editor as you go along.
Right.
So it's
Right.
been really good for me. So I have been writing. I have been out a lot this month. I've been traveling, but I'm trying when I'm home to write every
Yeah.
day.
Yeah.
Even if it's I notice, the teachers kept saying, just write for 15 minutes. And I'm like, what is that going to do? But what that does is it renews my juices, and it keeps me thinking about the book. So for me, that's working out for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wish I could be like some of our friends that write for 8 hours a day. I can't do that. My brain
You
would
know,
be fried.
what's funny is I can do that, but I
Oh,
can only do it for a day or two.
okay.
And then I'm going to have to take a break. Like, and then I'm
Hmm.
not going to write for a while because I've gotten
Right.
everything out. I love to go to a writer's retreat
Oh,
where
yeah.
I am not at home, where there's no dog to let out, there's no laundry that needs doing, no one's asking to
Hmm.
be fed. I don't have to worry whether I've showered because I'm not going to be offensive to anyone but myself. Like I can just
Yeah.
do me. And when I'm in that environment, I can write for long periods of time and I
Hmm.
can get a whole story, that first draft, and it's not pretty, but the first draft out of
Right.
me.
Right.
But if I don't have that, if I'm sitting here in my office and life is going on around me and I'm supposed to be participating, I can't get into the zone like that.
Right.
So,
Right. I agree.
yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. I think once again you have stumbled onto that good idea of get that first draft out,
Hmm.
get it
That's so
down.
good for
Because
me.
if you wordsmith every chapter as you go, you're never going to get any further because there's always going to be something that needs fixing.
Right.
And
Right.
so you're just going to keep going back and churning over chapters 1, 2, and 3, 1, 2, and 3, and you're never going to
Right.
move forward because it's not perfect. And
And
so,
I
yeah.
tend to be I've written and published before in education, so
Mhm,
I tend to be a what is it, light writer as far as words are concerned. It's hard for
mhm.
me to elaborate and everything. So
Yes.
for me, I know this first draft is going to need a lot of extra filling. So it
Right.
really is getting down the main plot
Right. Right.
and
And I'm
and
the same way. My first draft of Sunflowers Beneath the Snow is an 82,000 word book, and my first draft was 50,000 words.
okay, that's what I'm looking at probably.
And so I always have to go back and say, what more can I add here? And
Mhm,
part of mine is I don't describe where I am well. I really work so hard on the characters. And the very first time I had an editor and she said, Terry, these characters could look like anything and they could be anywhere. Like we need to fix that. And it was like, oh, okay. Because that's just, I think that where my strength is character development. I
mhm,
love character and I love dialogue, and that's where I
mhm.
really shine. And then everywhere else I have to work really hard to
Yeah.
make it
Well, we
to
all
make
have parts
Yes.
that we have to work out. That's for
Right.
sure.
Right. So I think that's great. Um, One of the things I loved in the book, and I don't know if you meant it, and so I'm going to ask if you intended to do this, but there's a juxtaposition of this cemetery with ghosts, and the ghost stories and whatnot. And then Carrie Ann has her own ghosts.
Hmm. You know what? I did not necessarily consider them ghosts. I considered her secrets, but
Right.
that's why I love my readers because I have, when I'm at book clubs, they'll say things and I'll go, "Oh, I never
Oh, I
thought
did
of that."
such a good job. Yeah.
That's great. Sure, I intended that,
Yes. Right.
but yeah, no, they were ghosts of Carrie's. You're right,
Right.
and um, I didn't purposely go for that.
I think I'm wondering if that was another one of those subconscious things that you did see that there is this. It's really a great back and forth between the city and all of its stories and secrets and things that make it what it is. And then we've got
Mhm,
Carrie Ann and all of her stories and secrets and things that make her
mhm.
what she are. And I don't know, I just really loved that.
Oh, good, thank you.
Yeah, it was great. So, another question that I have. Carrie Ann obviously has made mistakes young, and she's
Mhm,
kept them from people, and she kept them from a good friend, like her
mhm,
a best friend.
mhm.
Do you think, for you personally in real life, can a friendship survive that?
I think it depends on each of the friends. Um, I wrote Nessa, who is the main character in the second book. I wrote Nessa as a highly moral character,
Right.
and um, but she's also someone with a big heart. And if Carrie had not, um, well, I guess I'll just, if
No,
Carrie,
you don't have to.
yeah,
But if Carrie
if it
hadn't done what
hadn't
she had
turned
done,
out the way it was,
right.
they would not be friends.
Okay.
So I think there was a point at which, Nessa would say, no.
Right.
Whether I don't know if I would. I think it really depends on how much background and how much history we had,
Right.
and
Right.
the reasons. I mean, it's funny because I really didn't like Carrie by the end of the book. I was like, golly, I don't like you at all. You're making these awful decisions and you're
Decisions.
hurting, and come on, girl, step up.
Right.
So, but at the same time, I know that as a young person who, she made mistakes as a young
As we
person,
all do.
and really they were just over the top mistakes, but they were kids. And
Right.
so, people are like, oh, I just can't believe what happened to Carrie. And I was like, yeah, but that happens to people, unfortunately. Luckily, there was a lot of me and Carrie, as far as the high anxiety, as far as being an only child. But as far as how she was raised, where she was raised, certainly I went to college in Plattsburgh, but all the terrible things that happened to Carrie never happened to me. So I just imagined what that must have been like. And
right.
there were girls that happened to. And so I just tried to imagine, what that
would
was
I
like.
have felt like?
Yeah.
I know what
would I
some
have
things feel
told?
like. Right.
Yeah. I think
Right.
I would have told. I couldn't have, I don't know, because it was an accident, or
Right.
it could have been an accident, could have not been an accident. So it's, just interesting because it's how people react to it. And I said, you don't know how you would have reacted at 17.
Right. Right.
Major things, major traumas in your life, and you just don't know.
Exactly. Exactly. So you've given us a little hint about what's next. Do you have a title for this next book?
Well, tentatively right now it's Mystery in the Hollow.
Okay.
Because it's that's truly a mystery. With Secrets in the Hollow, it wasn't so much a mystery. You knew as a reader what was going on in Carrie's life. There was a mystery involved in it, but for the most part, this book is definitely a mystery, and it's definitely takes place at, like I said, at Sunnyside, with Nessa as the main character and Chester as one of their friends as the second major character. And it was great. Talk about the research was fabulous. I loved it. It talks about a famous painting or a famous document it was a letter between Washington Irving and Edgar Allan Poe. And this really exists. So that was in Sunnyside, and it's taken. At the same time, Chester's fiance is missing. And so there's all these deaths going on around them. And so they have to find out about it. And there's a secret society that people belong to. It's very fun.
Yeah.
But, I initially had it. This is good for writers to know, but I initially had it, that the wedding was going to be like 3 months out or something. And my teacher said, oh, no, this all has to happen in 5 days. And I'm like, 5 days?
5 days, right.
That is so much to pack in. But she said, but already as I'm writing it in 5 days, the tension is so high.
Exactly.
And so I thought
when you spread the time out,
yeah,
then the tension's not as bad.
Right.
When you pack it together. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I love that idea.
Yeah. All these things are happening. And Nessa, and the main thing about Nessa is that her morality is so high. And will she be able to find Chester's fiance? Will she be able to solve this mystery and keep her morality
at the same time? Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's basically
can she do what needs to be done and remain who she is?
Right. And
Yeah.
so there's going to be a lot of questionable things going on. So,
Right. Right.
yeah.
Do you have an idea of when you hope to have this book out?
Well, it's due. The first draft is due September.
Okay.
And then I would imagine around the same time as what this book came out last year. It's in March.
Okay, fantastic. So we can
Yeah,
look forward to maybe a new
I hope
installment in
so.
March. That would
I
be
hope
great.
so.
That would be great. So, Barbara, if someone wanted to reach out and get in touch with you and
Mhm.
learn more about like what you're writing or to get on a newsletter or whatnot, how do they do that?
Well, my website is lowercase Barbara Dullaghan, and my name is right there, .com with
And I'll have
no.
it in the show notes.
Okay.
Yeah,
And the website is on there. My blogs are on there. My access to all my social media sites are on there.
fantastic.
And I would love to hear from you if you have something. I love to do book clubs, either in person or online. And yeah, I'd love to hear from you.
Fantastic. Well, Barbara, this has been wonderful having you on. Everyone, run right out and get the book. It is fabulous. You will enjoy it. You will learn a lot about Sleepy Hollow, and then it'll get you primed for her next book, which is coming out
Yes.
in just a few short months.
And you might even want to visit Sleepy Hollow. A lot of people have.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. In fact, it's now on my bucket list of things to do. So,
Good. That's
all
great.
right. Well,
That's
thank you
great.
so much, Barbara.
Thank you, Terry. Take care.
Thank you for listening to Online for Authors, where I, Terry M. Brown, author of character-driven fiction and host of the podcast, introduce readers to characters they'd love to invite to lunch. Tune in next Tuesday for another podcast episode.